Hello, BookTube. I hope everybody's been having a good weekend. I am filming this on Saturday, and it will be posted on Sunday. And it's a tag. I no longer really do tags, but this one I thought is kind of interesting, and it's mostly because of the last question. It's got to do with 2022, and it's the year-end book tag. I don't think I did it last year, but I've noticed a lot of booktubers are doing it now, and I just did a search, and there's just reams of booktubers doing it now. So I thought I'd stick my oar in. There's 6 questions. One I'm altering a little bit um, to do a few other things, but we'll get to that. Number one, are there any books you started this year and you need to finish? Yes, one main one that I started about 3-4 weeks ago when I started getting some shots, some B12 shots, but that really sort of left me really tired. So I stopped reading it. It's a history, or it's the beginnings of American science fiction by Thomas D. Clarison. And I do want to get back to that, and it'd be nice if I can get that finished before the end of the year, but we'll see. Um, and there were a couple things at the beginning of the year when I was reading in January. I was reading a lot of African history and Zulu War, South African history, and there was a South African history that I was halfway through, as well as I started a big book of the with including the excavations at Rorke's Drift from the Zulu War in South Africa. And I didn't get back to those because at the end of January I had a heart attack and then caught COVID, and I wasn't able to read. And then I subsequently have long COVID with cognitive issues, and I find reading nonfiction very difficult. So I've parked those. I parked basically all nonfiction until probably September, I think it was, that I started, or maybe late August. Yeah, it was probably in August that I started some nonfiction again, but it's very slow. But I'm determined to continue with it. Um, uh, Number two, do you have an autumnal book to transition you to the end of the year? I don't have any single book. My for November, October, November, and December, I sort of do for the last decade. I've been doing similar things. October is generally ghost month for me. I read ghost stories, and every other a year I read all of M.R. James. This year hasn't gone quite to plan, but I've read some horror as well, and some ghost stories. And then usually that goes into November. It probably will not this year because of New World's November, but I will. And then around, well, I usually go into sort of mid-November with reading a little more about the history of ghost stories, literary history, literary criticism, as well as history of horror in fiction. Uh, and little bits and pieces like that. And then around mid to late November into December, out leading up to Christmas, I read some Christmas stories. I read either Christmas mysteries or just little short stories, not novels really, except, well, it's not even a novel. On Christmas, I read the the Christmas Carol every year, and as well as I read one of usually other Dickens's other Christmas stories. But also, there's a set of books that I've been slowly buying over the years. It's by Sutton, and they go by county in the UK here, every county, and it's a collection. It's an anthology of writings that are based in that county, historical as well as new up until the time it was written in the 80s, I think, or published in the 80s. It's a collection of news articles to do with Christmas, song lyrics, poems, snippets from fiction or even a short story, all that kind of stuff. And I usually read a few of those as well. So that transitions me into the end of the year, if that works for this question. Number three, is there a new release you're still waiting for? Yes, there's actually, well, there's one that was due in, I think, October or November this year, but it's been moved back to next year, to February, I think. It's Oxford University Press. It's one of their new hardcover Oxford World Classics, I think, or yeah, World Classics, I think it's called. But it's a collection of science fiction essays about science fiction, history, and so forth. And I believe it's chronological. It's going to be quite big. It's going to be like 400 or 600 pages, and it's just a collection of essays. And I've been looking forward to that. I probably have some of them and read some of them, but I'm hoping there's new material in there as well to me, new to me, I should say. So I'm looking forward to that, and I'm actually glad it's pushed back till February because of financial reasons, but it's always nice to know that something is there, but you haven't missed it, and it's still to come. The other thing that's coming, and I think it's always been next year, is a history of the Book of Common Prayer, which I've always been interested in. I've got a couple of books about the Common Prayer and the Book of so I think early 1800s copy of the Book of Common Prayer that's well used. Let's put it that way. Um, and I can't remember the author's name, but it's coming out sometime in the first half of 2022. So I'm looking forward to that. So those are two that I'm looking forward to. Well, actually, there's a third one by Mike Ashley that's coming out later in the year. It's the final volume of his history of science fiction magazines. We'll get to those in a minute. They're down here. Um, but it's from 1991 to 1920, and it'll be the hardcover. I won't be getting it. I'll be waiting until the paperback comes out, which hopefully will be the next year or shortly after that. So, but it is sort of nice. Would be nice to have, even though it's beyond sort of my interest. But it'd still be nice to have that as a reference. Um, Number four. What are three books you want to read before the end of the year? Well, I've actually got four. And they're all related. The first two are history, or partial history, of New World's science fiction magazine. And this is volume one. And it's written by John Boston and Damien Broderick. It's Building New Worlds, 1946 to 1959, the Cornell Era, volume one. And it's published by, it's an imprint, Borgo Press, which used to be a publisher in themselves, but it was bought out by Wildside Press now. And this was done in 2013. This is almost 400 pages long, and it's a history, as I say, from 1946 to 1959. And volume two takes the story up to 1964. It's before the New Wave, also by John Boston and Damien Broderick, Borgo Press, Wildside Press, 2013 as well. And these I'd like to read definitely before the end of the year, but it's iffy, but they're on the docket to read. And then the third one, and then we'll get to the fourth. This is also by John Boston and Damien Broderick, also the same publishers, Borgo Press and Wildside Press. This one is 2012. And this is a history of the science fantasy, British science fiction science fantasy magazine from 1950 to late 60s. But it also became Impulse. Yeah, there it is. I was trying to think of the name Impulse for a while. And so this is a history. Again, they're all around 400 pages long. There's three other volumes that complement this, that are collections, anthologies of stories from the science fantasy magazine. Now, the fourth one is called Vultures of the Void, The Legacy by Philip Harbottle. This is a history of science fiction publication from the 50s, like paperback science fiction. and this was published by Cosmo Books, 2011, and my copy is signed by Philip Harbottle. This is, I believe, a second edition. I think there was an earlier edition that was shorter. But it's also, there's a companion bibliography of British science fiction paperbacks and magazines, 1949 to 1956, which I'd really like to get. It would be nice to have as a complementary to this, but that would be nice to read. Now, number 5, is there a book you think could still shock you and become your favorite book of the year? I doubt it. I don't think so. Maybe one of those if I read them, but I doubt it very much. And because there's 3 books here. There's one fiction book, and there are 2 nonfiction books that are my favorite for the year. But my nonfiction reading has been very small this year. I'm hoping to expand it more, but it takes me a long time to read it because of the cognitive issues. But the best fiction one is one I just read this month. It is The Turn of the Screw. This is the Oxford World Classics paperback of it and other stories. And this was a bit of a shock to me, realizing how great it was. I should have read this so many years ago, but I finally had the excuse to read it and do the film. So my book for the film episode of this as well. The 2 fiction books, or nonfiction, sorry, but they're both by Mike Ashley, and the aforementioned History of Science Fiction Magazines. This is the first volume, and that was done in 2000 by Liverpool University Press, and it's called Time Machines, the Story of Science Fiction Pulp Magazines from the Beginning to 1950. Just fabulous history. And the second volume is published also always get this front to back, Liverpool University Press, 2005, and it's called Transformation, the Story of Science Fiction Magazines from 1950 to 1970. These are this is the era that I really love, and then it sort of dwindles as we get more to the present. But there's 2 other volumes to the set that he's done at the moment that are published that take that's from 71 to 1980 and then 81 to 1990. And the final volume's going to be 1991 to 2020. But those are great, and it's potential that one of these other 4 that I showed that I'd like to read could outshine those, but I kind of doubt it. But I would never say never. And number 6, this is why I'm doing one of the main reasons why I'm doing the tag, is have you already started making plans for 2022? The answer is yes. The major plan that I have, that I've started actually months ago, was I wanted to reread and add in stuff that I haven't read, Isaac Asimov's Future History. So it's a project, and I'm calling it the Future History Project. Starts in December with the I, Robot stories, or the robot short stories, and then going into the novels that all the novels that are part of the Asimov's novels, part of the robot novels, as well as the Empire novels, and then the Foundation novels. But there has since he passed away in 1992, there has been a number of other books that have been written that fit in that universe. And we're going to read, and I say we because it's me and a number of booktubers are going to be doing this, and a lot of others. And if you're interested in this, then do send me an email, and I can send you the list, the reading list. We will have a reading schedule by mid-November. Now, the other books are, yeah, by other authors, but it's like it's not required that you read everything through because there's a lot there. There's I think there's about 40 books or 50 books that are sort of required in order to read all the short stories and everything and all the other novels. So there's a lot of material there. So it's a big project. It's going to take us well into 2022, but I'm excited about it, and others are excited as well. I'm really looking forward to this. The other sort of things I'd like to do is I'm never one for getting on the bandwagon and stuff. Uh, is I want to reread Frank Herbert's Dune, the 6 volumes, and I'd like to do that next year. I've recently Golan's, I think because of the film, have put out a new hardcover, and it just came out about a month ago. It's not super well made, but it's not bad. It's got lovely end papers. That's why I took this off, and it's got um, printing. I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Blah blah blah. Here's the front end paper, and the back end papers. They are quite lovely. Now, I don't know if Golan's is going to do the other volumes, the other 5 volumes, in a similar format. It'd be nice if they do. It took me a while to sort of get used to the jacket, but I kind of like it. And it's got a cloth ribbon for a bookmark, so that's great. And the next thing that I want to do, I want to start next year. I don't expect to finish it next year at all, but it's the start of it, and I need a lot more to because I'm going to do a full reread in chronological order of Clifford D. Simak's works, and that includes his like 30 novels plus his nonfiction books. There's about 3 or 4 of those, and then he edited a few others. I've got I think 2 of the 3, I think, nonfiction ones. I've got to get one of the others. Um, those might not be in chronological because I'm going to read his fiction chronologically, and then I'll read the nonfiction non-chronological, or I mean the chronological but separate. Um, and as well as there's 12 volumes of his short stories that have been done, and it's all of his short stories. There's 8 in paperback that have been published, and I've got the 8 of those. 4 of them, so there's 12 in total. 4 are ebook, and this is done by Open Road Media, and this is volume 1, 2015. So they've been out for a few years. And I've got a few paperbacks that I got sent to me, and I need to get other ones, and these are just reading copies because they're pretty rough. Cosmic Engineers, it's a Methuen copy, nice cover. Ring Around the Sun, this four square science fiction, but it's quite a poor cover and poor quality. It's pretty rough. All these are. Time and Again. Interesting cover, Penguin science fiction, but again, quite rough. But yeah, that's what I plan on doing, and then reading sort of a supplementary, secondary material that's been written about him. Which there's quite a few things, but nothing substantial, just essays here and there. And it'd be nice to read his journalism as well. I might actually start looking for that because with material online, the newspapers that he worked at and wrote, they might have. I might be able to find some of that stuff online, which would be nice. I've only read little bits of it, but that's another sort of separate thing. But there's the tag, and that's my plans for next year. And as I say, coming up on Monday starts the New Worlds November, and and that's headed by the Bookish Bryants, and all you need to do is put the hashtag New World's November, and you'll see everybody that's doing it, and the videos that are coming up for that. And I'll put that down as a hashtag as well, and also the hashtag, which there isn't anything out really too much, but it's the Future History Project, which will be starting in December, going into 2022. And if you're interested in the Future History Project, I'll leave my email below. Email me, and I'll send off a Word document with complete list, sort of chronological in the sense of internal story wise, give or take. It's really difficult to get everything perfect in chronological order of the story, but it's about as close as I can get it, I think. And we might tweak it as we go along. But there'll be a reading schedule ready by mid to late November. So I hope everybody's doing well, and I'll see you next time, Book 2.